Parshat Vayechi. Yaakov, Jacob, sensing that his life was coming to an end and he was going to soon pass away, summons his son Yosef, his son Joseph, in order to request from him one final favor before he passes away. And that is this. He makes him swear, that you shall perform with me a kindness and truth. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but rather, that I will lie with my fathers, and bury me. You shall bury me in the burial place where they are buried. And this is referring to the Ma'arat Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah, where his fathers Avraham and Yitzchak, father and grandfather Avraham and Yitzchak, were buried, and he too wanted to be buried there. And Rashi tells us that the use of this language, chesed v'emes, a kindness and truth, means a chesed shel emes. What sort of kindness is he wanting him to do? A kindness that is totally truthful. What does that mean? It means that it is, as he says, a chesed. This teaches us that chesed that we do, a kindness that we do with dead people, that is a chesed shel emes, a kindness of truth. And there's many ways of understanding this, and I'd like to share a few with you. The simple basic understanding is that a dead person cannot repay you. You don't do the kindness in order that they should give you something back. You tender to a dead person and make sure they have a proper burial simply because that is a kindness that you want to do without reward. And that is what he was asking him to do. The only difficulty with this is that the Talmud tells us that in fact Joseph did get a reward. He did. He was rewarded in turn, midah keneged midah, measure for measure, that for burying Yaakov in Israel, he too was buried in Israel. He was reinterred. He was first buried in Egypt, but later Moses himself, Moshe, goes and makes sure to take his bones out of Egypt. They carry his bones with them all through the desert and then bury him in Israel. And therefore it's not really a kindness of truth in that respect. But in fact, it is. Because what he was asking him was not only to bury him in Israel, but Yaakov was saying, Al Nosik Bareni B'Mitzrayim, do not in the meantime, don't wait. Don't bury me first in Egypt and then reinter me in Israel when you leave. Like Yosef later on was going to happen to him. Because Yosef was buried in Egypt. We are told that they went out of Egypt, and we say in Hallel Hayam Ra Vayom, they arrived at the sea, and Hayam, it saw something, Ra, it saw Vayolos and ran, i.e. it departed. And the Talmud says, what is it that it saw? It saw the bones of Yosef, and in the merit of the bones of Yosef, the sea was split. And therefore, what Yaakov was saying to him is, please take me right away. Al Nosik Bareni B'Mitzrayim, please do not bury me in Egypt. Take me right away to the land of Israel, which is exactly what happened. After a short mourning period, he was carried and he was taken to Israel to be buried. And Yosef's reward for the burial in Israel was he himself was buried in Israel. And that is the idea of a chesed shel emes, a kindness of truth, where we don't do it for the sake of any reward. And the idea of a chesed shel emes, a kindness of truth that we do, is also understood to mean, why with a dead person is it considered to be chesed shel emes, a kindness of a truth, as opposed to any other kindness we may do? The only kindness is referred to as such. It's because sometimes when we perform an act of kindness and our intention is to be kind and our will is to be kind, the outcome, we have unintended consequences. The outcome wasn't as kind as we thought or we intended. It's not our fault, but we didn't intend it for that to be the case. When it comes to burying, ensuring a proper burial for somebody who has passed away, there is no other outcome than for it to be truth, to be kind. Because ultimately, a person who passes away needs to have a burial. And therefore, the kindness that we do is of truth, because the outcome is only ever going to be good as well. Not only the intention, but the outcome as well. And therefore, it's a chesed shel emes, a kindness of truth, to be true to that person who has passed away and bury them properly, ensure a proper burial. The kindnesses that we do are hinted in the word emes. A chesed of emes, a kindness of truth, is an acronym. MS is Aleph Mem Tov, stands for Orain. Aleph is for Orain, we ensure a coffin. Mita, a bed, we ensure that they lie down. And Tachrichin, it stands for the Tov, is Tachrichin, shrouds, that we ensure that they are buried with the shrouds that are necessary, that are traditional to bury a dead person. That is the chesed shel emes, the kindness of truth. Those are the kindnesses that we perform with a dead person. Later on, Yaakov gets ill, and Yosef brings his two sons, Menashe and Ephraim, to be blessed by their ailing grandfather, Yaakov, at the end of which Yaakov gives Yosef his own blessing. And he says to him, I'm going to give you, Hinei, behold, Nasati Lacha, I'm giving to you Shechem Achad Alachecha, Shechem, the city of Shechem, which is one over and above what I'm going to give to your brothers. And then he goes on to say to him, Asher lokachti mi'at ha'amori, which I took from the hands of the Amorite, v'charbi v'kashti, with my sword and my bow. Now, Yaakov wasn't the one that fought for this. This was Shimon and Levi. And therefore the commentators understand Charbi Akashti's sword and bow not to mean literally, but metaphorically. And therefore Targum and Rashi, for that matter, understand Charbi Akashti to mean the bow and the sword and the bow refer to my davening and my pleading. I davened and pleaded with Hashem that Shimon and Levi should be successful, and therefore they were victorious. And it's very interesting that the example used and the reference for davening is a sword, but also a bow and arrow. And a very beautiful explanation given as follows. The comparison between a bow, an arrow, and davening is that just like a bow and arrow, in order for the arrow to reach very far, you need to pull it closer to you. The closer you pull the string to you, i.e. away from the bow, that's going to ensure that the arrow is much more powerful and it will reach further. And the same thing is with davening. The closer we bring the davening to our heart, the more we meditate about it, the more kavanah we have in our davening when we think about what we're davening, even if it's not every word, but generally we think about the davening that we're doing, we bring it closer to our heart. That will ensure that the message that we're sending through davening, the arrow that we're shooting, is stronger and reaches a lot further up in heaven. And that is the idea of davening, why it's compared to it. We must ensure that we do that. There is also another understanding of Charbi or Kashti, a sword and a bow, and metaphorically speaking, the battle that we have with our evil inclination. And this is understood in the order. See, conventional warfare is about, in those times at least, first you would expect him to say my bow and arrow, because from a distance we hope to defeat the enemy with a bow and arrow. By shooting arrows we can defeat the enemy and only then come in closer and finish them off with a sword. But in fact, Yaakov says, we look carefully at the words, he says, B'charbi, with my sword, and B'kashti, and my bow. First he uses a sword, which seems to be the wrong way round. And it is because it is a metaphoric reference to our battle with the evil inclination that he uses Charbi first, our sword first. Because our evil inclination is close within us. It's inside of us. First we need to use our sword, the sword of davening. Cherev pifiyos, we're told, the sword of our mouths. That is davening. In order to daven to Hashem to help us to overcome our evil inclination, our internal desire and inclination to do something that we shouldn't, not to do good. And only once we have defeated and conquered our internal evil inclination through our sword of davening, can we use our bow and arrow, keep the enemy at a distance. There is another battle. We have to ensure we keep the enemy from outside, the outside influences that might prevail upon us to do something that we shouldn't. The influences that we have from the outside world that try and deter us from our mission of being good people, being good Jews. That is when we use our bow and arrow. And therefore, first it's our sword and then it's our bow and arrow. The sword of tefillah, of davening, we daven to Hashem. But also the Medrash says mitzvahs or maasim tovim. This also refers to the good deeds and our mitzvahs. Because davening to Hashem is not enough. We can have all the kavanah in the world, but if we don't act upon it, if we don't use our davening to inspire us to act in the way that Hashem wants us to act, to do good deeds, to keep the mitzvahs, then it's not going to help. And therefore, together with Charbi or Kashti, with our metaphoric swords and bows and arrows, our davening and our good deeds, we hope to defeat not only the internal evil inclination, our internal desires to do wrong, but also any outside influences that might deter us from the right path.